Italia Magistra Artium. He spoke on the law of evidence, J.J. O'Malloy said, of Roman justice as contrasted with the earlier Mosaic code, the Lex Talionis, and he cited the Moses of Michelangelo in the Vatican. Ha! A few well-chosen words, Lenihan prefaced. Silence. Pause. J.J. O'Malloy took out his cigarette case. False love. Something quite ordinary. Messenger took out his matchbox, thoughtfully, and lit his cigar. I have often thought, since looking on back over that strange time, that it was that small act, trivial in itself, that striking of the match, that determined the whole aftercourse of both our lives. A polished period. J.J. O'Malloy resumed, moulding his words. He said of it, that stony effigy in frozen music, horned and terrible, of the human form divine, that eternal symbol of wisdom and of prophecy, which, if aught that the imagination or the hand of sculptor has wrought in marble, of soul transfigured and of soul transfiguring, deserves to live, deserves to live. His slim hand with the wave graced echo and fall. Fine, Miles Crawford said at once. The divine afflatus, Mr. O'Madden Burke said. You like it? J.J. O'Malloy asked Stephen. Stephen, his blood wooed by grace of language and gesture, blushed. He took a cigarette from the case. J.J. O'Malloy offered his case to Miles Crawford. Lenihan lit their cigarettes as before and took his trophy, saying, Muchibus thankibus. A man of high morale. Professor McGuinness was speaking to me about you, J.J. O'Malloy said to Stephen. What do you think really of that hermetic crowd? The opal hushed poets, A.E., the master mystic. That Blavatsky woman started it. She was a nice old bag of tricks. A.E. has been telling some Yankee interviewer that you came to him in the small hours of the morning to ask him about planes of consciousness. McGuinness thinks you must have been pulling A.E.'s leg. He is a man of the very highest morale, McGuinness. Speaking about me, what did he say? What did he say? What did he say about me? Don't ask. No thanks, Professor, McHugh said, waving the cigarette case aside. Wait a moment, let me say one thing. The finest display of oratory I ever heard was a speech made by John F. Taylor at the College Historical Society. Mr. Justice Fitzgibbon, the present Lord Justice of Appeal, had spoken, and the paper under debate was an essay, new for those days, advocating the revival of the Irish tongue. He turned towards Miles Crawford and said, You know Gerald Fitzgibbon? Then you can imagine the style of his discourse. He is sitting with Tim Healy, J.J. O'Malloy said. Rumour has it, on the Trinity College Estates Commission. He is sitting with a sweet thing, Miles Crawford said, in a child's frock. Go on, well? It was a speech, mark you, the professor said, of a finished orator, full of courteous haughtiness and pouring in chastened diction. I will not say the vials of his wrath, but pouring the proud man's contumely upon the new movement. It was then a new movement. We were weak, therefore worthless. He closed his long thin lips an instant, but, eager to be on, raised an outspanned hand to his spectacles, and with trembling thumb and ring finger, touching lightly the black rims, steadied them to a new focus. Impromptu. In ferial tone, he addressed J.J. O'Malloy. Taylor had come there, you must know, from a sick bed. That he had prepared his speech, I do not believe, for there was not even one shorthand writer in the hall. His dark, lean face had a growth of shaggy beard round it. He wore a loose white silk neckcloth, and altogether he looked, though he was not, a dying man. His gaze turned at once, but slowly, from J.J. O'Malloy's towards Stephen's face, and then bent all at once to the ground, seeking. His unglazed linen collar appeared behind his bent head, soiled by his withering hair. Still seeking, he said. When Fitzgibbon's speech had ended, John F. Taylor rose to reply, briefly, as well as I can bring them to mind. His words were these. He raised his head firmly. His eyes bethought themselves once more. Witless shellfish swam in the gross lenses, to and fro, seeking outlet. He began. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, great was my admiration in listening to the remarks addressed to the youth of Ireland a moment since by my learned friend. It seemed to me that I had been transported into a country far away from this country, into an age remote from this age, that I stood in ancient Egypt and that I was listening to the speech of some high priest of that land addressed to the youthful Moses. His listeners held their cigarettes, poised to hear, their smokes ascending in frail stalks that flowered with his speech. And let our crooked smokes, noble words coming, look out. Could you try your hand at it yourself? And it seemed to me that I heard the voice of that Egyptian high priest, raised in a tone of like haughtiness and like pride. I heard his words, and their meaning was revealed to me.